Welcome to our Project Management Deep Dive. Today, we're talking about that critical moment of truth for everything your team builds. You know, it happens way before the customer ever sees a thing, and it's called control quality. We're going to break down exactly how this process works, and more importantly, why it's the ultimate gatekeeper for your project's success.
So, picture this. Your team has just finished a major deliverable. They've poured tons of hours, effort, and all their expertise into it. But before that thing goes anywhere near the customer, you have to answer one fundamental question. We built it, but did we build it right? And that single question, well, that's the entire reason the control quality process even exists.
All right, here's our game plan. First, we're going to define control quality's role as the project's official gatekeeper. Then, we'll get super precise on how it's different from customer acceptance and quality assurance. This is where a lot of people get tripped up. Finally, we're going to treat this whole thing like a high-performance engine, breaking down the fuel that goes in, the tools it uses, and of course, the results that come out.
Okay, let's jump right in with part one, the role of the gatekeeper. At its very core, you've got to think of control quality as your project's final internal checkpoint before a deliverable ever sees the light of day. And I'm not talking about a casual lookover. This is a disciplined, really structured review.
So this is the official textbook definition, right? But the key words here tell the whole story. Words like monitoring, assessing performance, and making sure outputs are complete, correct, and meet expectations. What this really tells us is that this isn't just a suggestion, it's a formal process. You're literally verifying correctness against the specific quality standards you already defined way back at the start of the project.
And this is why it is so incredibly important. Control quality is your project's safety net. The whole goal is to catch any errors and defects internally before they ever have a chance to reach the customer. Think about it. This prevents that really costly and frankly reputation-damaging scenario of having a client find your mistakes for you. It protects the project, and it protects your credibility.
Okay, now we're moving into an area where it's really easy to get confused. Quality management has a few terms that sound almost the same but mean totally different things. So let's get precise and clear up the confusion.
This analogy just absolutely hits the nail on the head. Think of control quality like the team on the factory floor, with their checklists and tools, making sure every single part is built exactly to spec. Validate scope? That happens much later. That's the customer standing at their loading dock checking the manifest to make sure they got exactly what they ordered.
Let's break this down even further, side by side. Control quality is an internal process. Its focus is on correctness. The question the project team is asking is, did we build it right? Now, contrast that with validate scope. That's an external process, focused on acceptance. The customer is asking a different question. Did we build the right thing? You see the difference? One confirms how it was built, the other confirms what was built.
And just to complete the picture, there's that third piece, manage quality. Think of it like this. Control quality is all about finding defects in the finished product. Manage quality is about improving the process itself to prevent those defects from ever happening in the first place. It's totally proactive. It's all about audits and process improvement, not inspecting individual items.
All right, let's get into the mechanics of this thing. For the rest of this breakdown, let's stick with our engine analogy for control quality. And, just like any engine, it can't run without the right kind of fuel. So, what are the key inputs that power this whole process?
There are a few key inputs that really fuel this engine. First, and this is the obvious one, you need the deliverable itself, the thing you're actually inspecting, but you also need the quality management plan. That's your rule book for how to do the inspection. Then you've got your quality metrics, the specific numbers that define what correct even means, like a tolerance of plus or minus 1 millimeter. Your test documents are basically the step-by-step instructions. And hey, if you're rechecking something that was already fixed, you need that approved change request. And finally, you've got your raw work performance data, the basic facts coming out of the process.
Okay, so we've got the engine all fueled up. Now, what tools does it actually use to do the work? Well, project management gives us a pretty powerful toolkit for teams to analyze and assess quality.
These tools really fall into a few key categories. For data gathering, you have simple stuff like checklists, or maybe more advanced things like statistical sampling. Then there's inspection itself, the actual hands-on measuring and examining of the work. Testing is just a more structured, formal kind of inspection, specifically designed to hunt for errors. And finally, you have data representation tools, which help you visualize all that information you've gathered so you can spot trends and problems.
And speaking of data representation, the control chart is an absolute classic. It's an amazing tool for checking if your process is stable and predictable. Basically, you plot your measurements over time, and you have these upper and lower control limits. These lines show the natural, expected variation in your process. Now, if a data point falls outside those limits, that's a huge red flag. It tells you something's wrong and the process might be out of control. It's a fantastic way to spot problems before they turn into full-blown crises. So, our engine has its fuel, and it's been running with its toolkit. What does it actually produce? What comes out the other end? Well, the outputs of control quality are some of the most critical documents in the entire project lifecycle.
And here it is, the grand prize, the verified deliverable. This is, without a doubt, the single most important output of this whole process. It's not just a deliverable anymore. Now, it's a product that has officially passed your team's internal inspection. It has a seal of approval on it, confirming it's complete, it's correct, and it meets every single one of your quality standards.
And this is so important because it creates this perfect critical link in the project lifecycle. Remember we talked about validate scope, where the customer formally accepts the work? Well, the verified deliverables is the key that unlocks that door. It's the primary input to that process. You never show a customer something that hasn't been internally verified first. The flow is crystal clear. You create it, you verify it, then you present it for their acceptance.
But of course, let's be real. Not everything passes inspection on the very first try. So this process generates other critical outputs too. You get quality control measurements. That's the raw data from your tests. Then you analyze that data to create work performance information, which gives stakeholders some much-needed context. If something fails, you generate a change request to get it fixed. And maybe most importantly, you update your project documents, things like the lessons learned register, so the entire organization can learn from the experience.
And all of this brings us to one final, critical question for you to think about. When it's done right, control quality is an absolutely vital safety net that guarantees excellence. But when it gets too bureaucratic or clunky, it can quickly become a bottleneck that just slows everything down. The key is to be rigorous, but not rigid. So as you think about your own projects, ask yourself, is your quality process a safety net or is it a bottleneck?